Welcome to Warblog. Hopefully I'm going to make a quick video. I don't intend to play this, but this is it's an interesting scenario. This is the Mykolayiv to Odesa scenario, which I did a few days ago, the 5th. And the assumption was that they would come this way. And the thing is, when you look at the terrain, well, obviously there's a big river from Mykolayiv into this sort of part of the approach to Odesa, and then there's another river and sort of probably boggy terrain, and another river, and then another river with this very fine gap here, and you sort of assume that people probably haven't got great defences along there, or they're going to figure something out. But if you look at sort of the other map that I've done, now this doesn't really bear on what I was saying, but advance from Mykolayiv, because they haven't taken Mykolayiv yet. So there's Mykolayiv there, and so the whole idea in this scenario is that they bypass Mykolayiv and sort of take all of these places, which they are already doing. They've already sort of bypassed it and sort of striking this way, and you can sort of see all the objectives. Now I was just reading this. Russian troops are likely to attempt to bypass Mykolayiv and cross the southern Bug, upriver of that city, to permit an advance on Odessa, combined with an impeding amphibious operation against that city. I thought, well, I'll look at that. So obviously I got a Google map. So there's Mykolayiv. So they're coming up here, and so my scenario sort of showed them maybe coming down here, but you can see it a little clearer. There's that one river, and this river is a big one. It's not a small river. And then there's, I hate all these pop-ups and things. There's this little land bridge there. Now there's obviously different ways of doing this, but I think what they're saying is they're sort of going to bypass it. And well, they've already done this in some regards, because we've got reports of them being here and there and everywhere. But coming up here, maybe even going up this road, because they want the big roads. So maybe going to, I wish I could stop these pop-ups. Maybe going to Kropi, that place, or some other route. But the point is, if they can go up to the E584 and turn left onto the E95, they can come straight down onto the top of Odessa. Obviously they've got to cross this ridge here. So that's not necessarily ideal. But the reason I'm sort of showing this is because I think clearly, oh, that's scratchy. To take Odessa, it might be better to be coming along this way. I mean, I don't, and my map doesn't really offer that sort of option. It does say Mykolayiv to Odessa. Now, I just assumed that would be the next thing, but I didn't really look at the terrain. But when I wrote the scenario, the terrain became a little more apparent. And there's that sort of crossing that we were sort of looking at. It looks a bit different in this sort of format. So essentially, I mean, one other way to do it would be to land a lot of airborne units here, but I don't think that would really sort of deal with it. It'd be interesting to see what happens in Odessa, not for any sort of particular reason, other than the nature of the war. For example, in Fearsome, they surrendered. Would they actually surrender? Because a lot of places are actually, well, they're not necessarily being beaten. They're just, they're obviously not putting up the same sort of struggle, because places like Kiev and Kharkov, they're major cities, and so it's quite easy for them to leverage essentially the continuous array of pillboxes and entrenchments that they can use, all the buildings. Something like Odesa is probably a little more sensitive, and maybe they'll surrender. I don't know. But the thing is, I think after reading that, I've got the impression that maybe they might not want to come this way. Maybe it is just too stupid. And maybe they will just bypass it, like the Institute of Study of War says. Because when you look at it, even like that, it sort of makes sense to just sort of somehow come around. Now, obviously, it's not a direct route. You'd need this bridge, so this bridge would probably be mined. This is going to be, a bottleneck. I mean, that is going to be really difficult. Now, they might be able to take it quickly and effortlessly using some other means, but this just looks like a difficult place archetypally, using traditional concepts of strategy, because it's such a narrow gap. This looks difficult. This road along here, even crossing from Mykolayiv, if they blow that bridge up, it's going to be difficult. They can have all sorts of defensive features along here to prevent them creating a bridge. And so that might be just impossible. They might not really care about taking Mykolayiv and prefer instead to sort of just come around. Obviously, they can't go through the city, but there's probably roads. So that's come across this little river, but they could come up here, across this little road. And the thing is, are there no roads here? So you've got this little road here, and I'm sure that they could sort of do things. I mean, I can't see the scale we're looking at now, but there's going to be lots of little roads, one way or another. And so coming this way, and then somehow crossing this little river, which doesn't appear to have any bridges over it. Is that a footbridge? I wonder what it looks like here. But I thought I'd just mention that, really, because it seems to me that I didn't think of that. And the whole point of doing the maps and the simulations is to sort of add food for thought, to sort of think, well, what if? And then once you develop something, you think, oh, hang on, how about doing it a different way? But the thing is, it's something that I might do it. I might sort of think, I'll go round. But it's an awful long way to go. But just like a lot of other places, I think what they're doing, they're bypassing these places in order to take other places. So there's Kherson, and they surrendered. They're not. Odesa's twice as big, Mykolayiv's twice as big. So what they're going to do is something else, really. And I think that Odesa is probably about as hard to get as anything, because there's not really any other roads. Getting past Mykolayiv is going to be a problem unless they come up this road. And I think they've done a lot of this. They could come up here, down here, basically, almost cross country. But that's 100 miles. I mean, that's not a short distance. I mean, I can't see my scale properly, but I think 10 miles is about the width of that. I can't be quite right. I think that's about 10 miles from there to there. So 10, 20, 30, 40. This is somewhere else. You wouldn't go there unless, just on a day. You wouldn't go there for your shopping. You might go there for a day out in the summer. So anyway, I just thought I'd mention that. It seems that this is sort of. I mean, I'm not doing a huge amount of research or anything, but Russian troops are likely attempting to bypass Mykolayiv and cross the southern Bug upriver of that city to permit an advance on Odesa. So presumably this is the southern Bug. Yeah, something Bug River. So presumably that's southern Bug River. And once it gets to sort of here, they can probably cross that relatively easy. But look at the size of it; it's still big. This is probably like the Suez Canal. That road is just about so it's about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. It's probably about 20 roads wide. And here it might be a bit narrower, but probably a bit faster flowing. And this might be a narrow point to cross. But obviously they'll get down that ridge and down here, and it'll be all muddy, and the vehicles will get all dirty. There's that footbridge. So this is like, formidable terrain, really. I don't know what they want to bother with Odesa for. It seems quite hard to get to, and looks like it gets shallower. At that point there, it gets shallower. So maybe they could just walk across it here. There you go. There's a good crossing point. But it's still, if that's one road, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So it's a third of the width. Obviously, we're going further upstream. It's going to have to go a long way up. We haven't seen any bridges. I wonder why there's no bridges on there. It must be sort of part of the national. Either that or Google has removed the bridges, because it seems a bit odd that you can go all this way. There's a bridge there. Look, there's 2 bridges. So they're probably. It looks like a bridge from a disaster movie. Anyway, that's all I really wanted to say. So I'll leave it at that, and I'll speak to you later. Cheerio. Oh look, I can continue. I was just sort of sitting there looking blankly at this screen, and I was thinking that's an awful long way to go. And so what else might they do? But obviously, in my little map, we've got these marine units, and they could land here and here, and it still wouldn't mean that it's simple. But if you look at the map, they could probably land and keep themselves in supply with a bridgehead of some sort. But the reason I started to record again was because what I imagine is that they've kept a lot of air defence in reserve in both of these places, so that you couldn't just sort of airlift people in there. But the thing is, I think if you were to take this sort of area here as a sort of beachhead, I don't think that they would have the reserve to counterattack that in any significant way, because any units that did would have to sort of pretty much expose themselves, and then they would be struck with offshore cruise missiles and naval barrages anywhere sort of moving around. So they could probably protect themselves, but we don't really know what the what the terrain is like. I mean, that looks like a nice beachy area, and that looks like a sort of that's actually sort of in a lagoon, isn't it? So they could probably land here and here. But that's a sort of big defensive point. So they've probably got all of this all sorted out. This roadway will probably be blown up. I think I've read somewhere about flooding areas as well. But the thing is, I think as much as anything else, you've got to sort of think, what is the significance of Odesa? It's not as though they really need it for supply, naval supply, because the Russians pretty much control this area, and I mean any supply they're going to be totally resupplied through Poland, Slovakia, and Hungary, and Romania, I think. So they got all of these areas for sort of receiving supplies, and I imagine that they're getting truckloads of air defense systems and anti-tank systems coming in. So it's not as though they need to keep that open. But I think the Russians probably would like it, so then they can start to supply from there and drive up into the sort of central area. But I don't think they want to take the whole of the Ukraine. I think that they're going to stop soon. I keep thinking that. I just can't believe that they want to sort of, take it to the bitter end and conquer the whole territory. I just don't see that as being plausible. Most places sort of capitulate before every single inch is taken. It's difficult. Anyway, I'll leave it at that, and I'll speak to you later. Cheerio.